Hey, it's Anthony here and welcome to today's podcast. And whether this is your first time or perhaps you are a regular listener, it's always great to have you join me here. Hopefully you're already aware that we're doing an intimate live 2-day business school event on the 16th and 17th of March in the House of Sassoon in London. And early bird pricing is currently available and you can find out all about the details at growmysalonbusiness.com/courses. And I'll make sure that I put the full link in the show notes for today's podcast to find out what it's all about. So with that said, let's dive into today's episode. Now, I've been in the industry a long time, and I'd like to think that I know a lot about all things to do with hair and hairdressing. But amongst the many areas that I don't know a lot about, or at least that I haven't had a lot of practical hands-on exposure to, is the hair extension side of the business. But one thing I do know is that the hair extensions business has become a huge part of the hairdressing industry as a revenue producer. And it is certainly not something to be ignored. Now, my guest on today's podcast is Dina Demetriou, who is the head of education at BeautyWorks, who are the market leaders in the hair extension business in the UK and Europe, and they have a global presence in the hair extension industry. And as I know very little about the hair extension side of the industry, but are very curious, I think that it makes me the perfect person to be talking about it. So in today's podcast, we're going to discuss what the biggest misconceptions are around hair extensions and how to work with hair extensions and why and how you should start integrating the hair extension side of the business into your salon and lots more. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Dina.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
No, it's fantastic to have the opportunity to talk to you. I mean, I've done something like 270 odd episodes, but this is actually only the second one where hair extensions have even had a mention. And it has become a huge part of the salon industry. And like everything else, it's constantly evolving. So it's overdue that I had someone on to talk about it. So look, before we get into talking about extensions and the extension market, for context around everything else, I just want to find out who or what is BeautyWorks?
So BeautyWorks is a hair extensions brand. They are, I would call them market leaders in the UK and Europe. We have a range of different products. It's basically everything you need in hair extensions. So every product is available. So we have different types of weft, flat tip, stick tip, nano. We do 2 different tape products. We have our own retail range, our own heat tools range. But we also, we invest in people. So we offer a range of different training courses to go on throughout the year. So we are a retail brand, but we're also a trade brand. So we have 2 different types of customer. You will see us everywhere in the press. Everyone's worn our hair. People from the Kardashians to UK's, sweetheart, Molly May, is one of our ambassadors. So, if you've been in the hair industry or you work with extensions, it is likely that you would have come across BeautyWorks.
Okay, so I know that you come from a family of hairdressers, and I also know that you are a former salon owner. So what I want to ask you is that when you had your salons, what was it that got you into the hair extension side of things?
In all honesty, it was my friend that worked for BeautyWorks. So she was working with salons at the time, and she said, you've got to get on this. At the time, it was more clip-in pieces. So we do clip-ins as well. I think there was some clip-in ponies. That's kind of like where the brand started. And she was like, you really need to get on this. Get your customers behind it, open a trade account. Why don't you just, put the feelers out there? I'll give you a catalogue. Run it by a lot of your clients, see if anyone's interested. And at first I sort of said, I don't think anyone's going to be interested in this. I don't think it's for us. And actually, when we put it out there to the clients, we placed about a £500-600 order for our first order. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe I'm missing something. And a few of the girls that worked for me at the time, they actually were extensionists. They offered, I think at the time, one of the most popular methods was weft or a weave. So they were offering it, and they had been saying to me, I think that we should offer it in Salon, and I just wasn't sure. For lots of reasons. I guess because I didn't know enough about it. So we're going to offer a service that I don't know about. I didn't know there was demand for it. So that's basically what got me in. We did that first order, and then there was more of a demand. And then you become, at the time, one of the first salons in the area that were offering those services. So it just went from there, really.
Okay. So when fast forward now, you no longer have salons and you work as an educator, and you're obviously talking to a lot of salon owners who are a bit like me, don't necessarily do hair extensions, but are curious about it, want to find out more. So what are some of the objections or the reasons why salons don't want to get into the extension side of business?
I mean, a lot of it is just, I'm a colorist, I'm busy, I don't have time. I'm not going to earn the money I'm going to earn in an hour doing a creative color, a balayage, a root tint, whatever that might be. Or it could be that they feel like there's no demand for it. My clients aren't asking for it, or my client goes somewhere else and she's quite happy. It may be restrictions like that. It may actually just also be because they don't know enough about it. It's like anything. When you don't know about something, it is, where do I start? I'm going to have to go on a course. Then what do I charge? I mean, what do I charge is a huge question that even we come across with popular accounts. We have someone in today. I'm actually at HQ, which is in Manchester, and she's come in for training, and I could overhear our trainer saying, you're missing out on a massive margin. And when I listened in, she's an established extensionist with a great Instagram and following. And actually she was saying that she is charging the trade prices to her customers. She hasn't mastered that she can make a profit on that. That could be a factor. Things like this could be a factor. People don't know what to charge. It's like anything. It's something new. When you add it, you can be unsure. And I guess with a lot of brands, they won't offer that hand holding, whereas we have the resource to actually, educate the customer, our customer, on how to charge their customer or sell it to their customer.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to come back to that because I know that is such a big area that you have expertise around as well. So before we, get into things, I wanted to ask you also, what is probably the biggest misconception that people have around hair extensions?
Yeah. Well, it's normally that they ruin your hair. That is the misconception. I can't have hair extensions, it ruins my hair. Or they may have had a bad experience and it may come from that. Or my friend had them years ago and then her hair didn't grow. And, all of this could be true. It is possible. All of this is possible. But it's like anything. You go to the wrong person for color and they bleach your hair and it breaks, or that they don't do the right thing by the condition of your hair. So I think that is probably the biggest misconception.
Okay.
That they are damaging.
Right. Okay. That's interesting because, when I was doing some sort of research to talk to you today and I was thinking about, okay, what are the questions I'm going to ask? And that came up a lot as being something. So it's interesting that is a big misconception. Who is the typical extension client? And I suppose another way to come at this is how important and this just might be my prejudice here, how important are the reality TV shows such as sort of Love Island? So talk to us about who the typical hair extension client is, and are they influenced by those reality TV shows? Is that part of what's driving this, industry?
I think so. I remember almost, it's like when I started my salon, when the brand started, Instagram had just come about. And you can't deny any part of, I guess, our industry from being influenced by social media. It's such a big part of it. It's such a big part of how people make business, sell business. It's definitely a huge player in our industry. I remember starting and I started in sales. I guess it was like more of a sales role. And I remember being like, everyone on my list, I got handed a list of clients, and obviously we've grown it since then, but they were like working from home. And I was like, why aren't I dealing with salons? And actually a huge part of what's in our industry are girls working from home, for example, independent salons. There's been a huge growth in that. And Instagram will be their shop front. That's what I say to them. I say, this is where you sell yourself, because you've got no passing trade, you've got no shop front, you've got no window to put products in. So you need to communicate your business online, which is a really, interesting part. But I guess that's kind of digressing from your question. Shows like Love Island are huge for a business like us. If you put your telly on now, it's on, and most of the girls will be wearing extensions fitted by a stylist that we either work with or otherwise. And I guess we're in the world of being influenced, so it plays a part. I guess who is our ideal client is an interesting question, because this is where the misconception is. Whilst these TV shows play a huge part and they're great, that doesn't mean that's our target market. And what we're actually seeing is that hair extensions are for everyone. Obviously, there are technically candidates who cannot have hair extensions for various reasons, but actually our market is anyone. It's your lady who's trying to grow out layers at the front that are a little bit broken, and the right type of filling out that area will help with heat, like protect your hair from heat, or will give you an instant layer, or give you an instant base frame of color. Or for example, I have warmer hair tones. If I, in the summer, I like to be a bit lighter. By just placing a few pieces of extensions around the front of my hair, I can have some ashier tones to enhance my color. Someone who's lobbed their hair off and then goes, well, actually, I want it long and I don't want to wait X amount of years for it to grow, or however long. And it's amazing actually seeing when you do this, it opens the conversation to people you would never expect. Oh, I've actually got hair in, and you'd be like, oh no, you would never know. So I think they're for everyone.
Okay, so
they're for everyone.
So I know that people who are perhaps watching this on YouTube will be looking at you like I am now. And there's a thought going on in my head. Exactly. So do you have extensions in there?
Well, I do. I have. It's a bit pathetic, because if you're extensionist, you'll be like, that's boring. I've literally got 2 pieces of tape each side for the very reason I said. It literally enhances the colour underneath my hair. It also is brilliant for holding a curl. Luckily I've got thick hair. It's quite full. And actually, sometimes I'm like, especially after having children, I couldn't be bothered to have them in. But actually, for like actual convenience, it's great. Adds colour. When I curl them, they hold for the day. So for that reason, they're great. And that's just, imagine I've got 4 pieces in.
Okay. So those pieces around the front, in your case,
I am happy to show you.
so they are
here, which is not going to be great for a listener. You can just see there's literally a piece there, and you can actually see the colour pot against my roof. You can see
that is
how
very much in the back.
It's comfortable. Look, you cannot see anything if I pull my hair back. That's the beauty of it. And if I tied my hair up, you wouldn't see it either, because they've been applied properly.
Okay. Here's something I've just thought of, and I might be going completely in the wrong direction with this question, which is, you are obviously not Scandinavian. Do you know what I mean? You obviously have a Mediterranean,
I'm Greek.
Exactly. You're obviously Greek. And, someone who's just looking at you that didn't know your name would go, well, she's either Greek or Italian or maybe Spanish, do you know what I mean? Or perhaps South American. In other words, you are incredibly lucky in that you have this beautiful, thick, luscious, gorgeous hair, which so many of those, the women in those countries naturally have. Now, I'm trying to sort of build a link here in my own mind between when we talked about damage before and breakage and who was hair extensions for and not for. I used to have this expression, I used to talk about this in the context of perming. That's how old I am. I used to, be in the salons in the late 70s when perming was huge. And I used to think to myself, the problem with perms is that the people who need them the most don't have the right hair for it. So you'd perm like someone's hair like yours, thick, gorgeous, luscious hair. You'd get this beautiful curl out of it. Whereas you'd perm someone's hair that was, fine and, just fine, thin, not dense hair. And it was never as good. So I suppose what I'm trying to ask you is this. Is hair extensions a little bit like that? Is it a case of the people who need them the most, i.e. the people with sparse, thin, fine hair, that it's actually more likely to damage their hair? And I'm just making that up. I might have be completely
I understand what you're
be
saying,
uninformed.
and especially because it seems like, for example, like for me, I'm not the candidate. But I
Yeah,
guess the interesting thing is I'm not the candidate. Obviously, I work for the brand. So,
yeah,
I've got some hair extensions in. However, once I had them, I can't explain. We're giving women instant results. And I used to
yeah.
see it as a salon owner, okay? There is nothing like it when you've got a woman in your chair. And literally, I used to say, this is the time to sell aftercare when you put those extensions in, because
Mm,
they're instantly, it's like a confidence boost. Like they used to sit in the chair and say, I wasn't going out, but I want to go out now. And
mm.
that time as well, when I say about retailing to that customer, it's because all of a sudden they're rich because they feel good. It's like, yeah, I can afford the aftercare. I'll take that. I'll take 2 of those, because you're
Okay.
just giving them this instant feeling of gratification. And it is a real thing. And I know a lot of hairdressers listening will understand if they do color, or a good haircut can do amazing things for people. It's like this with extensions. And, you know, it's not a cheap service. So it's not something, oh, shall I have them or shall I not? Most women that have them will have a need for them. Going to the right stylist, you'll identify the right product. There's not 1 or 2 or 3. There's loads of different products available and lots of different ways to fit that product. For
Mm,
example, I know people who have a weft around the front and individuals around the sides to support that. In
mm.
fact, you had Emily, is it Hadriel?
Hadril. Yeah, yeah,
She was saying that that's what she has in her hair, because
yeah.
it's not one size fits all. So with the right hairdresser and the right application and the right method, these results are achievable for everyone. And I've seen it with my own eyes. Obviously, there are cases that, it's not right for the client, or
Mm.
their hair is super fine and it's not going to sit right. But I would like to think that there is a product out there that will help most clients.
Right. Okay. Um, how much of the extension business is the sort of stereotype 20 to 30-year-old, full head of sort of, luscious hair?
Yeah,
Um, and how much of it is the other part of the market, which I'm assuming is thinning hair,
yeah,
whether it's for health issues. You mentioned having children before, and
yeah,
you sort of alluded to the fact that after you had kids, that a lot of women lose a lot of hair, etc.
yeah,
So they might want, extensions for those reasons. And then
yeah,
I'm going to throw in, menopause and stuff as well into the mix, because all of these sort of issues affect hair and hair loss, etc. So I'm just
yeah.
trying to get a grasp of, is my stereotyped understanding of who's got extensions right, or is it wrong?
I mean, the stereotype is real. It's living. It's out there.
Yeah.
But it can be a subtle service. I have less than 1 pack in my hair, for example.
Mm.
If you are, see, hair loss is an interesting thing, because I don't want to say that extensions are a solution for hair loss.
Yeah.
Obviously, with certain areas of hair loss, you shouldn't wear extensions because it's going to cause, it could cause pressure from the scalp. But that's up to the stylist and the
Mm.
individual. But in most cases, remember what it's doing as well. If it's harmless, like we're talking about potentially for a lady whose hair doesn't grow, or she has got thin hair, with the right method, we're talking about, and the right amount,
Mm.
instant confidence, instant feeling better, that pressure that they're carrying where they feel like my hair never grows, or I just don't feel the same. My hair's lost its luster, it's lost the color, it's dull, it's flat. You can fix that instantly with hair extensions. That's the market.
Yeah.
And actually, I think with regards to education and some of the things that we are going to introduce as a brand this year, we want to feed that through, because it is reaching out to people that do colour. I might be speaking now, and there might be a colourist that go, oh my God, I've got that client. Actually, I've never thought of that.
Mm.
So a couple of grams each side will really, really help with the issue I've had, that she's been saying to me for ages that we've been trying to grow this out, or we've been trying to do that. It will work. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. The extension business, I've been hairdressing a long time. So, a long time. And I can remember in the end of the 70s, early 80s, there was a guy in London, Simon Forbes, and he was sort of the pioneer of hair extensions. But it was artificial hair. This was the time of, sort of Culture
Yeah.
Club and Boy George and all that sort of stuff. And it was a very interesting, exciting time. But you look at hair extensions now, and they're just like it's like night and day what they were to what they now are. So what are some of the changes that you've seen in the hair extension business and what's driving it? So, we've mentioned the Love Islands and the Instagrams and all this sort of stuff as part of the driver, but just talk to us about what are the changes, what's the evolvement that you've seen thus far, and where do you even think it's going? And what is it that drives that?
Yeah. Well, I feel like we have so many more products, for example. So when we started, like I said, it was like clip-ins or hair pieces, and then it went into wefts, and then it went in, and then it evolved. I mean, tape was a massive game changer, especially when I had started, because I feel like it opened up for us, where we are, central London market, loved products like that. It's meant to be a quicker service, a more instant service. The results are great. Again, it's versatile. So that took us to a different place. What's driving it, I think, is the stylist and the hairdresser and the demand, and that might be not only product, but I get asked, for example, we will offer X amount methods of training, and then someone will go, but do you not teach it like this? And then there'll be this new name for a product, or a service. So that is a driving force for us, because we're having to constantly be on our toes. There's lots of things we do, but then there's so many other different things on the market all the time, and it's keeping up with trends, and the customer decides what that is.
So if you're listening to this and you're the typical salon owner, they're probably thinking, okay, so is this a new clientele that I attract if I get into the extension market? Or is it my existing clientele that start to take advantage of additional services? What is it that you've seen? I know you gave examples of your own salon, but what is it that you see in other salons about that?
I love this question. It really excites me, because it's both. And this is the brilliant thing, because you will be amazed it will open up a new clientele. So let's look at it from that point of view. Yeah. And if you're a salon owner, it might be that you introduce this so that other people can fulfill a service if you're fully booked, for example. But by offering this, it is a new service. Obviously, it's like offering something new. It's going to attract new clients. But what you have to remember is there's a client journey there. So you're going to put the hair extension client that might not have found you, that now knows you do hair extensions. That person's going to sit in your chair. They're then going to need their roots done in 4 weeks. So you're going to take the extensions out. You're going to do their root color. You're going to then refit them. They might need their balayage done. Every other time, you're going to say to them, we need to do a trim on your hair and a mask on your hair, because we're going to maintain your natural hair while we're doing that. So we've upgraded a service. We've opened up a whole, can of worms for the client, but, profit margin for you. And when it comes to servicing current clients, it will be one of those things, and I've seen it. You've got the client sitting there, across there, if you're working in a salon, for example, and they say, oh, what's that? Oh my God, doesn't our hair look lovely? I'd love to try that. Oh, do you think? And then it kind of sells the service for you. Obviously, if you work on your own or you're freelance, it's another thing that you can talk to the client about. And once you're more confident offering it, so if you're new to it, you can't know what you don't know. That's just with anything, right? So you can't know what you don't know. Once you have the knowledge and you fulfill the service and you touch and you feel and you experience the results, it's just gonna, as a stylist, open up your offering to your current client.
You used, when we were talking the other day, you said blah 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 extensionist as a word, and I thought, oh gosh, I didn't even know that was a word.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously
Yeah.
extensions
I don't know if
are,
we've just made
but
it up, but it's
yeah,
definitely a word now.
it's become a word, right? Okay. Now, the
Yeah.
reason I wanted to ask that was that I had a coaching client. I do a lot of one-to-one coaching with Salon owners,
Yeah.
and I had a coaching client who has she is an extensionist. That's all she does. Okay.
Right.
And she has a salon in London. She had a very successful small business. And the thing that intrigued me about her was that she wasn't a hairdresser. In other
Right.
words, she wasn't like you, who was a hairdresser who's got into the extension business. She actually, I believe, started off as a client and thought, wow, this is amazing. And then did a course and, learned all about extensions. And now fast forward, she has a business of her own. Now you've already sort of touched on this when you talked about, I forget what you called them. You didn't call them home hairdressers, but you had a term that
Freelancers.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that becoming a thing within the industry that you have extensionists who are
Mm.
not hairdressers? Is it like
Yeah.
another division of the hairdressing industry, extensionists?
It is a thing, yeah. And I've seen it, and I've actually seen someone's success from that. She's actually a super successful extensionist with a salon that has like 8 extensionists working for her. But she started off on her own, and obviously, I guess there are restrictions with that. There were originally restrictions with that. So, for example, she was unable to blend and cut her own extensions in because she was like, I'm not a hairdresser.
Yeah.
But I guess the evolution is that she learnt to specifically cut extensions, because cutting extensions, for example, isn't the same as doing a haircut.
Yeah.
So I guess, in short, the answer to your question is it possible? Yes. But of course, it's like any practice, right? You have to master that skill. You have to understand, I guess, the contraindications. Like if I put something in someone's head, it's going to pull there, or it's too close to the ear there, or that part of the scalp, the hair's finer. So it's still, I don't want the fact that they're not hairdressers to take away from the fact that you don't require experience and knowledge.
Yeah.
We do see a lot of extensionists, for example, who might not be hairdressers.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it's interesting that you touched on the fact about the cutting and I guess the coloring side that she couldn't cut and color, and so that was one of the conversations that we were having. And she acknowledged that although she was really good at putting in hair extensions, she couldn't style them the way that she, because she didn't have that expertise as a cutter. So when you talk about that, can I just ask a question about that simple question? When you cut them, do you use a razor or do you use scissors? Do you have a preference? Is one right or wrong or what?
If it was me, I would like to use scissors, and you kind of point cut it, and then, blend into it. But everyone has their own technique that they like to work from. What I will, just on the other point, when we actually offer training for extensionists, we do require for you to be MVQ level 2 equivalent or above.
Okay.
So actually, as a brand, we have a different stance. But what happens in the wider industry, it doesn't stop you from being a successful extensionist.
Okay, so I just want to, for our non-English audience, just qualify what Dina meant by NVQ. NVQ is basically a qualification that hairdressers have to have in the UK. So that's all she's alluding to there. It's a little bit like the licensing system that they have in the US, but in the UK you don't actually have to be licensed, but there is still a training system that people go through.
Just on the point with your client though, what I would say to her is it would be very useful for her to be able to cut the extensions in and style them for her client.
Yes.
And the reason being, apart from obvious reasons, because the beauty of hairdressing, I guess, is to see the finished result, to see that moment as well where the client sees themselves in the mirror and goes, wow, what a difference. And I guess by not cutting them and styling them, they're leaving with that full, just fitted finish, which, believe me, there's a difference between that and when you cut and blend them.
Mm.
So there's that factor, but there's also the risk factor. And this is what we've had with our clients in the past. Well, the people that I've kind of, I guess I mentored them through their, salon career. What I would say is, you're making a risk. They're spending hundreds of pounds on extensions and hair. You're putting in the head, and then you're sending them somewhere else. Now, if that person doesn't do a great job, when it comes to, first of all, they've messed up your work. Second of all, when it comes to refitting that extension, which is a whole, different service in itself to the actual fit, that's going to be difficult for you. So for those two reasons, it's really worth it. And there's so much out there now. There's so many things that she can do to train to cut. We just added a cutting and blending segment onto our courses for this reason, because I felt like we weren't delving into it enough, and it's such a big thing. And as for styling, I mean, there's so many resources online. If do you see what I mean? If she doesn't want to, I would always recommend a course. But there are so many resources, tutorials, stylists talking about styling. So I would really recommend she does top up her skill set with those resources.
Good. I do believe I recommended her to somebody, and I do believe that that's exactly what she did. So we're on the same track there.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about the different methods that there are, because these days there seem to be a lot of different methods, and you've mentioned a lot of them. I've written some of them down, whether it's tape or micro beads or micro loops or weft or hand tied or sew in or clip in or keratin bond. A lot of those I just picked up doing a bit of research on Google. And so I ended up coming up, for air thinking, okay, so which methodology is the best? Is there a best, or is it a case of it depends on, the person in the chair?
Yeah. So people call things different things. I even heard it on your podcast, and I was like, well, that's a stick tip. But someone else might call it a micro bead. There's a nano bond.
Okay.
Tape, there's weft, then there's different names for wefts and them attached to the method of fitting. But often, so if you're a hairdresser and you're like, well, actually, how do I know what to train in? Because my clients ask for this, but I don't know what it is. It would just be like a debunking. So you would say to them, what is that? Is that sewn into the hair, or is that done with beads? And then you would quickly be able to decipher what method they're talking about. It's usually the wefts that are the thing that there's lots of different ways of doing it, different ways of putting them in. But, like anything, things just evolve. It's like balayage. You see what I mean? Everyone's got a different, what is balayage anymore? Everyone's got a different method and finished.
Yeah, good. Okay, I understand that. So if you're a salon owner listening to this and thinking, actually, this is definitely something we're getting more and more demand for, or people are asking about, it's something I want to explore, what would be the sort of practical steps as to how they might look at integrating, putting a toe in the water with different methods, or how they might sort of start to introduce us into their salon?
A training course is the best way to go. If you don't know where to start. So, for example, how we would work is we have a whole sales team. So by getting in touch with us, you would then be put in touch with someone who could probably talk you through. It's about the why, and we're talking about that a lot now. And I'm talking about it a lot with our teams. I want to know why people have made that phone call. Is it because they've seen something online, and that, because then we can identify our customers' need, the industry's need for fitting extensions. So is it because their clients are in the chair and they're requesting it? Is it because they're missing out on a profit margin and they've got empty days? Because how you approach that is completely different. It's completely different. Now, if you wanted to get in touch, you get in touch and you can talk about, well, actually, for example, it's because I have a specific client and she wants this, then that's fine. That's obvious choice, of course. But it might be like, do you know what? I've got a free day in my diary and I want to fit something, but I don't have a lot of time and I don't want to. That's a whole other thing. I might say, we'll go for tape because it's a quicker method. I don't want to attach that to tape all the time. But for example, it's a great entry product. It's really versatile. It works for a lot of people. The results are instant. So it just makes sense. But it is really important to understand why. Where has that come from? We can advise that, and we take you through the steps. We're working on systems now. I'm definitely working on what happens when you've completed that course and you just leave and you're ready to do extensions. I guess the great thing with BeautyWorks is that you then have a trade account. It's not like just going for an independent course and then you don't have anything. You have a trade account. There's a consultation tool, a colouring. I think it's behind me. No, that's some hair. I thought I had it behind me, but it's a consultation tool. So then you have the tools that you need to carry out a thorough consultation. We cover that in the training. It's a thorough, thought out way, because this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is what we do.
But if you're, as I've often said, we get a lot of listeners in different countries. We get over 70 different countries listening in every week. And I know you have a global footprint. You're not just UK based, but in terms of the sort of practical steps, if you're in, I don't know, Portugal listening to this or whatever, and you think, oh, hair extensions, that sounds interesting. What are the practical steps? First one is to find out who distributors or suppliers are, find out if there's any courses. Is that the sort of thing?
Yeah, so you could reach out to us directly in the UK. There's like an email available online. And then our team, if there is a distributor, they'll get you in touch with them. Alternatively, someone based at the office, we have international business advisors here at the office, will point you in a direction or talk to you about it themselves and let you know what resources might be available online for you or otherwise. So if you are thinking about it, definitely get in touch.
Right. Okay. And that applies to the US people listening to this, Australian people listen to this. It's not just UK and Europe. You do have a global footprint. Right. Okay. You mentioned retail. And that's always interesting. Are the products for extensions, is it specialist product? Like, can you not just use your regular shampoo, conditioner, styling product?
It's like anything. Obviously, if you have your colour done, your stylist will advise you to use certain products. It's just like that with extensions. I would say it's probably more important because look, we get this natural, beautiful, amazing result that makes you feel like it's all yours. At the end of the day, you're wearing a product in your hair every day. Now, if you want to guarantee the lifespan and the best use of that product, it is best to use the right shampoo, whether that be sulfate-free or normal shampoo for some products, for example, so you don't dry out the hair, a conditioner, a heat protection. I would follow the guidelines set out by your stylist and definitely recommend that you use the right aftercare. And that is something that we have a range of aftercare products to suit the extensions. And I just think also, and I always used to say this, if you're investing all this money in having hair extensions for just an extra fee, I would, and also we give lots of advice and methods to stylists. So if it's from a business perspective, how to build in the price when the customer has their original service, their first fitting service. So yeah, in answer to your question, it is very important.
Yeah, and you just touched on what I was going to ask you, which I think you're confirming it already, and that is the retail opportunity here. Because I used to find when I had my salons that the people who spent the most will spend the most because of that one word, invest. And so I used to find it with color clients. People who had a hair color in the salon were more likely to purchase retail. Yeah, so even though their bill was already $200, whatever it was, they were still more likely to then, because I've invested $200 or £200 or euro, whatever it is, into this color, if the stylist does their job properly, they're also then more likely to invest more in color treatments, tools, styling products, whatever. So you generally would find that with extensions as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, look, to a lot of stylists, this won't be news, but I would do that when you're doing a consultation, because when you fulfill a hair extension service, you should be doing a consultation. You would need to do a consultation prior to the client having the service, because you'd need to colour match their hair, discuss the right, what their goals are, how much they need, the right colours, if I haven't already said that. And at that point, that is when you say, and you will need to take away these products for you. And it should be a part of the service. And I tell you why. Because if they're not leaving with the right products and you don't know what they're using, they could come back in and then you've got a bigger problem on your hands, because they're going to go, my hair's dry, or my hair's not doing this, and I just feel like the colour's fading. And then you have to deal with that problem. So best for you to just be upfront and say, when I'm fulfilling this service, you will need to go away with these products. And I used to do that. And to be fair, for example, for the price of a shampoo and conditioner, it's worth just either giving it as part of your, I think it's nice to say, we include this as part of the service.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is the sort of the thing that we talk about in education. It's giving, because stylists might go, I never thought of that, and I'm like, do you know what this costs you? You know what it will cost you in the long run if you don't do it. Do you see what? And it's just, giving the customer that incentive to get them, and knowledge as well. They might not know this. They might think that they can just go and use anything on it.
Yeah, of course. Okay. That's good, because you've naturally segued into talk about pricing, which is the last thing I want to cover here again. So sure. From a business point of view, I know that extensions are very lucrative. We all hear about people with these significant bills, for extensions, but they're only lucrative or profitable for the salon if they're priced properly, if they're done well, using a quality product. What advice do you give someone when it comes to, okay, this is how you work out the pricing? And I always think it's important when you talk about pricing to talk about time, because pricing and time are inseparable, and a lot of people get that wrong. So talk to us about that, about the advice that you give to people when, pricing it as a service.
You're probably going to have to rein me in on this one, because it goes out into a bigger discussion, which I love. So I love this subject. It's amazing how many extensionists we work with that don't understand the pricing. That's not their fault. So when you work with a brand like us, obviously other brands will have this in place. They will have a price list that you buy the hair. Okay. You will be exposed, is that the right word? To trade prices. There will then be a retail price for most people, or a recommended retail price. The gap between that trade price and the retail price, that gap is your profit margin on purchasing the hair. Okay. Now, what a lot of stylists may not do is understand that, and they just go in at the trade price. So, I hope I'm not losing people.
No, let me put some numbers around it. So I'm a salon owner, and I need to buy some hair, and I buy that hair, and it costs me $300, £300, €300. Now, what you're saying is, don't tell the client it's the wrong terminology, but you don't say to the client, this hair's cost me $300 to buy. No. You say to the client, here's the hair, it is $400 or $450 or $500 or whatever. Is that essentially what we're saying? Because as you're saying, there's a profit margin that needs to be there for that product. Just like when you buy a bottle of shampoo or a tube of color. Well, a bottle of shampoo is a better example, I think, in that you buy a bottle of shampoo and you pay $20 for it, £20, €20, and then you sell it for $40. You don't have to tell the client that it costs you $20. They know you're in business, and they know you put a markup on things. That's part of being a business. And you're saying it's exactly the same with the hair. You buy the hair for X dollars, you mark it up to Y dollars, because you're purchasing a product and then selling that product, the product being the hair.
That's absolutely right. And it's a business, and you have to see it like that. Yeah. And you're also, that profit margin might be building in, depending on how you price things, other costs. So your cost for the delivery cost, I mean, I would advise adding that on, for example, but it builds in other costs, right? And then
before you go on to talk about the service cost, I've got this in my head, which is what percentage. So I bought the hair from you for $300. What is the markup? Do I mark it up to $600 or like, is it a 25%
or 100%? So the markup is advised in the RRP price. So when you work with us, we tell you this is the RRP price. This is the value of the hair. Yeah. So we actually tell you that cost. Now, if you're working to a guideline and you're buying at a trade and there is no RRP, probably a 20 to 30% markup is a reasonable markup. But as I said, as a brand, we give you that. That's all in the prices. It's all broken down depending on your trade account and, what percentage you're getting. And sorry, is that okay with that before I move on to the service?
Yeah. RRP, for anyone who's not sure, recommended retail price.
Retail price, sorry, I should say that.
Cool. That's
so with regards to service, it's how you look at your time, which is what you said. And I love that you said that, because that's so important. And you're charging for factors I always say are time, experience, and I do think location, because I've seen extensionists in London, they may charge double what you might do in like an outer London area.
Yeah, I think that everyone would understand that you do that, because the rent that you're going to pay in London or Manchester or New York or Chicago or Sydney or Melbourne is going to be a lot more than if you're in a small country town in any of those countries. So obviously, I think the time factor, the time needs to be charged higher to address the difference in those overheads, rent being one of the big ones. So, yeah.
So they're factors that you probably need to consider. So here's the thing. So we have a lot of people who will say they'll be a really busy colorist and they do want to do more of different things. They want to maybe open their clientele. They're doing a lot, and everyone, you know how it is. It's never enough, is it? Like, you want to be busy doing color, then you do color, then you've got a fully booked column, but what else can I do? And I think so when I used to work and go into London salons, they would say to me, but I can charge X amount doing colour. I'm not going to make the same. And I'm like, well, so what do you charge? What's your hourly rate for colour? Well, it's like £85, £95, £120, whatever it is. And I'll be like, well, that's what you charge to fit the extensions. If that's your rate, then that's your rate. If your customers are happy to pay that, then that's the price that you add on to get your final price.
Yeah.
And then you're not missing out. And this is what I love to be one of the big misconceptions with extensionists, that it's going to take away from your profit margin. And actually it's not. You're going to get paid the same, but you're going to offer a new service to get new clients who are also going to take advantage of the services you've always been offering.
With extension clients, because there's a lot of money that you, the salon owner, hairdresser, invest in getting that hair before the day that the client comes in, is it standard practice that the client pays up front for the hair before the appointment? So that as a salon owner, you're not going to invest X $100 to get some hair and then the client cancels at the last minute and you're left standing all this hair. What is the standard practice around that?
Consultation, you take a deposit because they have committed to the appointment, because you're also going to allow for the time, right? And the deposit should be a significant amount. A client is not going to not turn up for a £300 appointment.
So is it basically the cost of the hair?
Basically. But I wouldn't expose that as a cost of the hair, because you don't want to expose your prices, because you want to present it as, So I would just have your standard 250 to £300 deposit. They're not going to not come in for that, and that will cover your costs, right? If they didn't show up, and that would just be good practice, I think, for any salon owner.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, listen, we need to start wrapping up. Whereabouts can people connect with you? On Instagram, website, other social media channels?
Yeah, sure. So I have, I don't know if people are going to be able to pick this up. I'm on Instagram and I do share some tips, and I'm actually sharing the journey of hair extensions, education and knowledge on my page more and more. And it's at Dina Demetriou _ I think. But we also have BeautyWorks Online has a huge platform with almost 1 million followers, where you can see tutorials, videos, product launches. Everything is on there, so be sure to check them out as well.
Good. Well, I will put both of those links in the show notes for today's podcast. So if you're listening to this podcast with Dina and have enjoyed it, then do me a favour, take a screenshot on your phone, share it to your Instagram stories, and don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcast app. So to wrap up, Dina, thank you for being on this week's episode.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, my Salon Business Podcast. That's been great having you. I've learned a lot in the conversation, so thank you.
Thank you.